Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order with roll call. Jocelyn Apicello. Here. David Gelber, excused. Courtney McCarthy, here. Kent Schott.
Here.
Matthew Spicer.
Here.
Sarah Tormey.
Here.
As everybody can see, we'd like to acknowledge that we have two board members attending remotely in a public location that has been disclosed. Separately, not together. Okay, I'm terrible at this. This is why I don't do this. Everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all. Okay. Next up, we have accept agenda and agenda changes. Are there any? Would anybody like to, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accept the agenda as presented? You're going to have to be the second. Look, okay.
Sorry, I was reading it.
All, what do I say? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Dusty.
You're welcome.
Okay, we are moving on to the final presentation of the 2023-2024 proposed budget presented by Carl L. Albano, Superintendent, and Joe Jimick, School Business Administrator.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Joe and I thought we did add some new information, just a few slides. So we thought we would follow what we did last meeting, which is pass over all of the slides that we've already presented, and pause at some new information, and then certainly take any questions from the board as we proceed. So we started with our budget goals, stay within the allowable tax levy, also be transparent. This is part of that process. We have a few more upcoming board budget presentations, have budget lines that are based on actual spending trends and accurate projections, and also maintain staffing levels and programs that support the district's strategic plan goals. We're very confident that this budget accomplishes and meets all of these objectives. Long-term goals, we would like to see, and we had a lot of very good discussion last couple of meetings. We would eventually like to get to a place where our revenues cover our expenditures, and we don't have a reliance on fund balance to close a budget gap. This year, we have decided to use some fund balance because, as Joe will elaborate on, there is some potential for some aid and some special aid that we've pursued, and also some reimbursement from FEMA, and that could help us with our fund balance next year. We won't have that information in time. Tonight is the night where the board has to adopt the budget. We may get this information in a month or two from now, but we will certainly have it as we start to develop next year's budget for the following school year. The instructional programs, I will pass over this very quickly. We are maintaining all of the exciting initiatives that Garrison has been pursuing over the past couple of years. There's a summary of them, and these slides are posted on our website for anyone to refer to. All of our enrollment numbers are the same. We have verified that there are 15 pre-K students. We can accommodate up to 18. So certainly if there are any more families out there, or if they come forward, we could add 3 more potential pre-K students. But otherwise, the numbers are, in my opinion, very desirable. One slight change here is in middle school. We are excited about opening up a special education, special class program. The ages will be around 7 or 8-year-old children. And right now, we believe we have 4 families that have verbally committed to have their children be in this program next year. We are excited. We are currently conducting a search for a special education teacher, and that is a change that you see for 2nd and 3rd grade. Middle school numbers are the same as they were last time, so I will just continue to move forward. These are our high school enrollment numbers. I'll just pause here for a minute, even though I said this before. We do have some headwinds. You can see the projections. From this year to next year, there is only a slight increase in high school enrollment, but the following 2 years, you see it's a steady increase. That means more tuition and a greater impact on the budget in the years ahead. Also, I mentioned the special education program. This slide did change. I would just like to point out that now we will be increasing our teaching staff by 1 new teacher to support this program, and also there will be a teaching assistant, and that is a requirement. The ratio is 12-1-1, meaning up to 12 students, 1 certified special education teacher, and 1 certified teaching assistant. The recommendations remain the same, which is to reduce some of our expenditures, but maintain program. We believe we can do that by reducing an art position by 0.4, eliminating a part-time CSE, CPSE chairperson, and having our new psychologist assume all of those responsibilities. Special ed changes, again, I reviewed this. Enrollment right now of 4 students, but potentially there could be more. You can go up to 12. 1 teacher, 1 TA, and there would be revenue. So this, to elaborate a bit more, this is a partnership with the Haldane District, and we're very excited. Phil Benanti and I, for the past couple of years, have been looking for opportunities to partner. And I think this is a perfect example of a partnership that makes sense, first and foremost for children, keeping our special education children here at home and not having to send them on a bus, maybe 45-minute commute to an out-of-district placement, is great for students, and it's great for their family. And of course, it's aligned with the law, which tells us the program should be in the least restrictive environment. And certainly being in your home district meets that standard. We have 2 Garrison students who are appropriate for this program, and we have 2 Haldane students that are appropriate. So this is an opportunity to partner. The program would be housed here. We would support the program. Academically, the teacher would work with the children in the smaller group, but then whenever possible, these children would be given mainstream opportunities with non-disabled peers. And things like art and music and of course, lunch and recess and other special programs, as much as possible, they will be here attending school with non-disabled peers, which we think is a great plus.
Can I ask one quick question about
Of course.
So we're partnering currently with Haldane. I assume that means we could also, if there were appropriate students, we could partner with our other districts as well. How many students could this special class hold total?
The maximum, Courtney, is 12.
Okay.
So it can go up to 12 students. We're opening it with 4 that we know about, but certainly we could partner with other districts, and that's, that's an exciting opportunity.
And the 4 currently keeps the budget, it does not inflate the budget at all, it does not change the numbers?
Yes.
Budget neutral? Got it.
Yeah.
You'll update like how it changes. Okay.
Yeah. I leave the numbers up to Joe. It's a safe way to go.
Got it.
But yes, it is budget neutral. And Joe will give you more details on that. These.
Real quick.
Oh, please, Ken.
How do you go about do you spread the word with other districts that this class exists? Like, obviously it's probably better if you get more kids in it, I'm guessing, than having just 4. Do you proactively go out and tell other districts that we have this opportunity now, or what happens with that?
Definitely, Ken, great question. What we plan to do We first wanted to make sure the program was established. And by the way, we have verbal commitments, just to be clear with the board and community. The CSEs are not finalized yet, but we've already had conversations with parents, we've had numerous meetings, and we feel very confident enough to, of course, roll this out publicly tonight. But once it's established, which I expect the official CSEs to happen within the next couple of weeks, we will then put a notice out to local districts, their directors of special education, just making them aware of the program, that we have seats available. It is a new program, but give them a profile and just speak a little bit about the school in general, and that we would be open for referrals. I do want to be specific about this. Referrals that come in, we are going to be very selective. So a lot of time, Allison Amig and her counterpart in Haldane were very thoughtful. We believe all 4 children are a really good match for one another. If we did add a 5th or a 6th, they would also need to be a good match. Not identical, each child has individual needs, and we understand that. But we would be selective. But certainly if we would get, a profile of a child and evaluations and information, we would do visits, have them visit us, and that process could play out. But there's a strong likelihood that, by next year, or when this program's established, that we could show other districts. I think it's going to be magnificent. And I do think it'll attract other students and families.
Thank you.
These slides really just go over all of the special offerings that Garrison has maintained, the frequency of those programs, everything that we had last year that was aligned with our strategic plan is in next year's budget. This is a little more detail just about the psychologist CSE chair for anyone who wants to understand a little bit more about the job responsibilities. And now, the expense portion of the budget, I'll turn it over to Joe.
Thank you, Carl. Some of these slides, as Carl said, are not changed, so we're not going to spend any significant time on them. But there is challenges for next year as far as the growth in expenditures. A lot of that is inflation-driven. Growth in transportation expense is inflation-driven. We spent a lot of time at the last regular board meeting to review the safety and security components that have to do with technology, so we'll go past that. Inflation and the tax cap. The tax cap doesn't really work in conjunction with inflation currently because of the inflation being significantly greater than what it had been in the past, because the formula is 2% or the rate of inflation, whichever is less. And obviously, for the last couple of years, as well as the imminent future, we believe that to be a difficult challenge. And because Garrison is considered a low-need district, there isn't significant aid coming to Garrison. And that is all information that we reviewed previously. Most of Garrison's neighbors pay 2 times as much in taxes for the equivalent value of house. And in New York State, Garrison is ranked 616 out of 678, which means that 90% of the school districts in New York State have tax rates that are higher than Garrison. So we have been lobbying representatives for additional aid. There is a proposal in the Senate One House budget that includes a grant of $180,000 of special aid for Garrison. Now, as you know, if you've been listening to the news, the budget for New York State has still not passed yet, so there is still not a New York State budget. They did pass an extender so that they could get paid this past Monday. This is still a holiday break for them, so they're probably going to pass another extender next Monday. But if I were having to guess, I would believe by the end of next week, we'd probably see a state budget. And then at that point, we would know whether or not this 180,000 is in the budget or not. But currently, our budget plan does not count on that dollar figure. So one of the things that is on the budget as a resolution or a authorization from the public is to enter into a multi-year agreement with Putnam Valley in similar in form to what we have currently with Highland Falls and to some extent Haldane. So this would allow us to have a tuition contract with Putnam Valley that we have a very predictable growth in the rate for tuition cost. So the tax cap, there are formulas that are associated with it. The tax cap amount has not changed since prior versions of this presentation and the budget. We're not seeking an override this year, and that was a goal of the Finance Committee. And the 3.29% is just needs a majority vote. So it's just a regular budget in compliance with the tax cap. Okay, so the revenue is changed a little bit from the last time that you've looked at this. The amount of fund balance that's to be used for next year is the same, but what is different is the tuition. So in the tuition line, basically the tuition line represents the tuition that we would expect from the two students at Haldane, as well as the tuition from a one non-resident pupil that would attend Garrison. So that's what is in the revenue. A1311 is $110,000. And the rest of the items there are basically the same as they were in the previous versions. And it's the same use of fund balance. So there is additional use of fund balance to allocate the expenses for the current year retirement contributions for employee retirement as well as teachers' retirement. The reserve for tax cert, that was something that was authorized at the last board meeting to pay for the settlement for the golf course, and then the use of fund balance that you see there. So the change in fund balance year over year is an estimate of $678,000 change in the current year and $684,000 appropriated for next year. Of that, this is very early to talk about what that would be. That would look like $530,000 reduction in fund balance at the year end in June of 2024 based upon what we know now. So that's assuming that we have some of the things that are built into the budget as contingent expense that we don't have to spend. So we do anticipate that there are some things, potentially special education placements, if they are not filled, we will have some breakage and we won't need to use as much fund balance as the $684,000. Okay, so this is the main adjustments. So the special education staffing, including salary and benefits, retirement contributions, health insurance for the two new staff members would be $204,000. We would reduce the out-of-district placements by one of the students that is destined for the special class was currently at a out-of-district placement. They would be in district, so that expense would not, for tuition, would not be required. And then there's recording the likely receipt of tuition for one out-of-district regular education student that's choosing to come to Garrison. And you put all those together in the math, and you get a budget that the expenses increase by what's required, but the revenues increase by what is needed to balance it, and no more fund balance is needed above and beyond what we've already committed. So this is the proposed budget that we're asking the board to adopt tonight, and it's $12,564,000, an increase of $459,000 or 3.79%. And the majority of the areas where there are changes are debt service, which is the bond expense for the capital project that's being finished up, the cost of electric, and the instructional cost of the new program are the main components. So these are still some of the unknowns. So transportation for private schools and special education, what the terms for a GTA contract settlement would be. Those things are still unknown. Whether or not we have any out-of-district placements above and beyond what we think we're going to have. And then if we will get that special aid of $180,000 and FEMA claims. So the district has submitted claims to FEMA that are related to the COVID pandemic to reclaim the costs of outside contractors cleaning the building, outside contractors, meaning Orange County, cleaning and sanitizing buses, and the cost of the iTutor expense that was not covered by BOCES or rescue plan funds. So the iTutor program, we did request and did receive some funds from ESSER to offset the cost of part of that expense, and then we get BOCES aid based upon our ratio of 36% or thereabouts. That came back as aid already, so we're seeking for the balance from FEMA, and this could be close to $400,000 worth of aid that could come back to the district. Now, we don't know if we're going to get all that. This is new to everyone, and I have been told by the aid representatives from Department of Homeland Security, who handles the FEMA submissions on behalf of New York State, that our claim for the iTutor expenses is a novel claim. So, we could get it, we could not. So we have to see how that goes. So we need to allocate $684,000 of fund balance and reserves in order to stay within the cap and avoid cuts to the educational programs. And as we have said in previous meetings, that use of $684,000 of fund balance and reserves doesn't relieve a lot of reserves, accessible reserves left to support the development of a 24-25 budget. And if we do get some additional aid, the $180,000 and $400,000 from FEMA, it does make next year's picture a little better and a little less challenging, but there still is a likelihood that we could have the need for an override next year in order to be able to maintain the level of educational programming that we have here. I mean, obviously, if we get additional tuition revenue, if there's additional students that come in that special class, all these things could help. But we have to build the budget based upon what we know at the time, and this is the best information that we have available right now. All right, so these reductions that we spoke about in previous meetings are still the same. So the transportation model we're looking at is we're moving from 4 large buses to 3 large buses that we would use for both high school and elementary and middle school transportation. That's going to require some development of new routes that don't currently exist, and it'll depend on the actual students and where they live and where they need to go. You know, there's also private school students and special education students. This is going to require adjustments to the schedule. There may be longer bus rides or more centralized pickup locations in order to make it all work. This is something that's going to be developed over the next several months, and we'll have more information in the summertime as to what it actually represents. But the finance committee and the board, have really given us the guidance that they felt that this was the best option to preserve as much educational program as possible, which is the most important thing that we do. So, there may be longer transit times on the bus and different times that students need to be outside and those sorts of things, but this also minimizes the impact on the educational program. So we're recommending that the board should seek the maximum allowable under the cap, which is 3.29%. If the budget is defeated on May 16th, the board can hold a revote on the exact same budget or propose a different one or adopt a contingent budget without going back to the voters. If a contingent budget is either adopted or it is something that after we have 2 votes and they both fail, we are forced to adopt, that is a 0% tax increase and will require $341,000 of additional cuts to balance the budget. So we have several propositions. The first one is just the budget amount and the permission to levy taxes to support the budget amount. Proposition 2 is to use $45,000 of the capital reserve to support the installation of new electric hot water heaters in the school. The portion that is funded by the reserve is the local component of monies that are supported by a grant. So the district received a SAM grant from New York State last year that had to be used for capital improvements. We have indicated to them that we would be using this to install 2 electric water heaters. As you may know, before the capital project, the heating system in Garrison was oil-fired boilers. There was one in the middle school and one in the elementary school side, and oil-fired hot water heaters, and we have 2 of those. This capital project that we are on the process of completing got rid of the oil-fired boilers, but we still have 2 oil-fired water heaters that are both connected to a 25,000-gallon underground oil storage tank outside. These oil heaters are beyond their useful life and really do need to be replaced, but the total cost of those units did not really fit in the contingent amount of the project that was left. So we are applying the grant funds to this. So in order to access the $90,000, the district has to have at least 10% that they put up in order to cover. There may have been some escalation since these numbers were first calculated, so that's why the $45,000 is being requested. And then the third proposition is very similar to propositions that we did last year in order to make a long-term contract with Putnam Valley for high school tuition.
So can I just ask,
Yeah.
Prop two, it doesn't say how much we're gonna spend. I didn't even realize that.
So it's up to 45,000 is what we're asking for.
But it's not in the text. Is that intentional?
I think it just came out of that slide, but it is
Oh,
included.
it's in the actual.
It's actually, it's what's
Okay.
on the agenda that is accurate in
Got it,
that,
okay.
in that proposition.
It just needs to get on the
Yeah,
slide.
I think we just-
There's a lot of words in that one,
There's a
fellow.
lot of words, but I noticed the 4 or 5 was missing. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Okay, and so that's proposition number 3. And then we have one more presentation, more of a public informal presentation that's at the Desmond Fish Library, April 20th. It's also going to be simulcast electronically, so people can either visit the library or they can watch it through, I believe it's called Crowdcast, I think is the name of their app that they use. So you can log on and watch Carl and I talk about the budget one more time. And then the required meeting is on May 3rd. That's the public hearing. And we will present the budget in its entirety, including 3 components and a discussion of what the contingent budget would be. And then right after that, we mail out the newsletter. That work is already well underway in developing the newsletter. And then on Tuesday, May 16th, we have the budget vote, and I believe that there are 3 board members up for election. Any questions?
I think we've seen this a few times now, and I think it's encouraging. I think we made progress even since the first time, as far as some of the different things, different possible funds that we might obtain. I know it's there's been a lot of discussion about the budget, but as chair of the finance committee, I feel good about where we are and where we stand going into the next part of this process. And I appreciate all the hard work that you guys have done.
Sarah, Matt, any questions?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to jump in and thank Carl, Joe, and Allison for the work on putting the special ed class together. I know a lot went into that, and while other districts have, directors of special education, as you referenced earlier, we're very fortunate that we have administrators who are willing to take on that role and have experience with special education to make these type of opportunities available to our students, which not only save us money, but are in the best interest of the kids. So congratulations on putting that together. I know it's not finalized yet, but thank you so much.
Just a couple of quick questions. You mentioned the newsletter, which is already underway, and I'm sure, Dusty, you're working on it probably mostly. Thank you. Given one of the slides saying that the remaining reserves would not likely support a 24-25 budget without cuts to program or an override, is there any way, I'm sure it's you and the finance committee working together on this, but can that be stated in the budget newsletter so the entire community gets that notice that as of now, without FEMA funds or special aid funds, which are not guaranteed, that next year we're looking at a challenge?
I'm a little hesitant. I'd like to think about this a little bit more and talk about this a little more. I don't necessarily think mixing in this, we've all lived this and talked about this every day. These 90% of the people in this community will get this thing and look at it, and maybe 5% of them will look at it even closely. So to put stuff in there about next year's budget, which we've been over a few times, we don't really know what it's going to be. We have some ideas. We've made the statement, if nothing good happens, we're in trouble. I'm hesitant to tell the community, hey, we're in big trouble next year, before we truly know what we are next year. And I know we've had this discussion over and over. Are we going to need one next year or not? If we get $400,000 and other things happen, we might not need one next year. And
Right,
so
but-
I'm hesitant to mix in next year's troubles into this budget newsletter too heavily. That would be
Even though
something-
it was in the public presentations, like every single time, alerting the 7 people who come, but really we have a community of 4,000. I mean,
I would like to see how we would actually put it in there and
just quote the
communicate.
slide. Quote the slide.
I think that, I personally wouldn't, I would never put that in the newsletter for next year, the way it's quoted right now. I think it's too, I personally, I think we don't know enough to put that in the newsletter. That would be my opinion. I don't know
What
what
does
Joe
other
or.
finance members think?
I can speak to it. I'm hesitant on a legal basis. I think the newsletter needs to be about this year's budget, but I am happy to run that question by council. There are specific components, but beyond that, I'm curious. I haven't looked at the legal definition beyond the components, like the pie chart and all of that, as to what needs to be in the newsletter and what we can say. After we do that, I share Kent's hesitation that we don't know enough. Also, it's a different board that will be looking at next year's budget. And I don't want to put them in a position where we've made decisions for them.
But there's no decision because that slide just says, if all things stay the same and we do not receive those monies that we requested, FEMA and the special aid, we will not have enough to build a budget, period, right? Unless we cut programming or go for an override or both. I mean, that's literally the truth.
We don't have any idea, though, of our expense. We still have a lot of.
Last year, we promised everyone that we were going to.
Yeah, I said last year I personally wouldn't support an override. We didn't promise anything. I said I personally wouldn't support an override. Other people said that too.
Thank you.
But I just don't think putting in next year's budget troubles into this year's budget newsletter, when we really don't know what next year's budget's challenges or opportunities are going to be, is the right thing to do for this year's budget newsletter.
Let me ask this. The reason I care about it is because the budget newsletter goes to everybody, right? And it's the one opportunity to reach all the people who never show up or watch the video. Can the finance committee put together a budget newsletter, not the official one, right, that goes out to the entire community much earlier next year in the fall semester that says, here's what we're looking at. We don't know much, but this is what we said last year, and this is what's coming. Some way that literally is the every door direct mail that goes to everyone. And I mean, I don't want to make Dusty have to make it, but I'll help make it. But I mean, a way to communicate to all the residents. I think my problem or my concern is that there's been a few who've listened this year, right? And it's been an activated few. And I'm concerned that next year, again, it's like flump, and we're all just going to be scared again. And is there a way, can we send out a budget newsletter to all households that is not the official one?
Well, that would be a newsletter about the school then.
Sure.
And I would make a case that perhaps we should, if we want to send communications out about the school, that we send out something besides, hey, we're in huge financial trouble. This is all you're going to get about the school until, I mean, I just think that
Well,
like.
you can add a page on our great programming. But I mean, what the community doesn't understand necessarily the potential trouble we're in, I would say. I mean, like you said, we're not in trouble because we could get this $600,000. But if we don't get it, I don't know. I mean, am I the only one that's seeing this, that there is trouble?
Jocelyn, I would just add that, we will know for sure. I agree with the Finance Committee members that it's a little tricky to have this information with this budget newsletter with so many unknowns. But when the auditors, when the external auditors complete their process, which is usually by October, Joe, right? We will have to the dollar where we stand with fund balance. And certainly, if that picture is concerning, the Finance Committee could potentially start their work earlier and plan some type of communication. I do agree, though, that doing it based on some real numbers and accurate information would make me, as superintendent, feel a little bit more comfortable. So nothing is to stop us from communicating with the public. And I agree with you. I know your concern is, well, most of our communication goes out to parents and our school community, but to get to the entire community, we could potentially do another mailing. And just, Dusty, ballpark, what does the mailing cost the district? I don't think it's a
It's not a lot.
It's
A huge expense.
For them. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, because I've done it too. Like, it's not that much. It's a couple thousand,
It's less than that.
even less.
Yeah.
Like
Because we use
891,
the-
I feel like.
We use our.
Our own
Not
printing and
profit
stuff.
permit.
And you print yourself.
Yes, and we print it in-house.
I may just throw out another suggestion is, you could open the school year with like a welcome back mailing where you invite people to join the finance committee and say, we believe that this budget is going to be a challenging one, but we would like people to join us. And, if you get, you do have an opportunity to get some non-affiliated people to show up, and if you can convert a few of them, that could go a long way. So that's another possibility, is you could,
Finance committee isn't public.
Joe, I want to jump in on that. I'm sorry, Kat. I can hear
or
you, but I
budget
can't see
advisory
you.
committee you
But,
could do.
The finance committee, I believe, is currently set by our policy as board only. So if that is something the board wishes to do, we should address that policy as well. Correct, Dusty? Am I correct on that one? Or the charter for it?
Yeah, I would have to go back and look at our charge, but you're talking about the finance committee or?
Yeah, the finance
Yeah.
committee.
I think is specific.
But Joe just amended what he said and recommended maybe there's just a budget advisory committee that could include community members.
Sorry, I missed that.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, well, after I said it, I realized
Right.
that I needed to say something else. So, budget advisory committee could be anybody.
Yeah.
That sounds great. And then just while you're letting me speak, we also have the FAQ that will be posted on the website that Carl's working on. There might be a better place for, and I have to go back and look at what you already have in it, Carl, for some mention of the contingency, because I believe it's already in there that section on it won't support a budget. And maybe we could look at doing the FAQ as an insert in the budget newsletter, but that'd be something that I'd say to the finance committee. I don't know if that's something we can do.
The answer is you definitely can do that, Sarah, and I did get a draft out to the board finance committee. And yeah, in that, and it's just a draft, but some ideas were to answer a question about, fund balance, because that sometimes is a source of confusion for people. And also, what does contingency mean? So, I appreciate the input from others, though. They were the questions that I thought would be, of interest to the community.
If we got the 600 from the aid that you've applied for, that builds back our fund balance, pretty much what we depleted, but it still doesn't mean that our revenues match our expenses.
Correct.
And I think that ultimately, at least it's the goal you stated on this
Yes.
presentation.
It is.
So the only way to have our revenue match our expenses is to have our revenue match our expenses. And the only way we get revenue is state aid, which we know is capped at 3 now because of our designation, real property taxes, and gifts and grants.
Yep.
So it's still going to be a concern, even if we get this 6. I just feel like I want us to be real with ourselves and of course with the community, that we spared them a 12% this year. That was my math, 12%.
That's pretty good math.
Instead of doing the, if we didn't take any reserves and we didn't cut anything, we would be asking for a 12% override in order to maintain everything. Of course, we didn't want to do that. That was the goal of the finance committee. And so to spare them that, we've pulled from reserves. And I just think that we've done that for every year that I've been on the board. I don't know, you're the longest on here now. We've probably been pulling mostly from reserves and staying at the cap,
Yep.
which is a lovely practice, but we've gotten ourselves into.
sustainable, though.
Right. So it's just something to God, next year, again, if I'm on the board next year, it's just it's a lot and we're gonna have to do it no matter what, because this year, tonight, we're gonna adopt this budget, right? So I just feel like we have to really be real
I
with
think you
folks.
make a really good point about thinking about the long-term strategy. And that was, it was one thing I remember we were talking about it last year when we were concerned about the timing, about how little time we felt we had to really get out to the public the urgency about going for an override. And I do see it as a, oddly good thing next year that we're going to have a lot of lead time, and I think communication is definitely key. But I do agree with what the finance committee is saying about not going in this year's budget newsletter, because I think it muddies the waters too much, and this is already really complicated. It's
Yeah.
all,
Does the newsletter that we put out show the remaining reserves for next year, or is that not part of the requirement? Not that it means anything to most people, right, because we don't know what that number really means, but is that part of the?
It's not typical. I mean, it's typical that it's in presentations like we do, but you don't typically see, kind of the history of reserves on the newsletters.
Or what will remain, the 580 something out of,
Yeah.
that we can use, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the history of reserves is something that really the external auditors, as I'm sure you recall, they have a couple of slides on it, and they spend some time there. So,
Yeah.
that may be the appropriate time if we want to speak more about the reserves and educate the community on why the use of reserves to close the gap is not a good strategy, and we'd like to try to wean off that strategy that we've done year after year. The fall, I think, may be a more appropriate time. I just get concerned too. There's a lot. The newsletter is packed with information,
It's tiny print.
and we're going to enlarge some of that print. We've
it
already
almost
made.
makes it look like we're hiding something when you try to
That's so
cram
tiny.
in that
I
much
know.
information.
We already planned more pages, larger print, larger visuals. I think the concern is, not confusing people, about this year's budget. But we certainly have to be clear that we're using contingency. I mean, that will be made clear. That we're using fund balance, not contingency. We're using fund balance to close the gap. I mean, that will be there. We could probably look at the Q&A, and maybe elaborate a bit more through Q&A.
I'm just going to add also that, coming from Sarah, she's having some sound issues, but she has to say that, to make sure to mention that these cuts are in line with our job, that they don't impact students at all. And it is our job as the board to look at the busing and find the most cost-effective ways to do it.
Oh my God, but don't get me started on busing, because I was just at the town-wide Climate Smart meeting, and their goal, I don't know, did they ever
Are they going to
contact
buy
you?
us electric buses?
Well, their goal is to advocate at Haldane and Garrison for electric buses, obviously.
Great. Do
And
they have
we-
money?
You've already done tons of work for it. Well, no, but we
Well, if
could
they
have
wanna do
money.
that, can they advocate at the state level to the people who
To
can give
make
us
the
the money
grants
for
big
it?
enough to be able to buy.
So that's what they're doing. But, Haldane has money in their budget for a new bus, and they're going to maybe be able to buy that. And we could have money in our budget if we build it as such. We just don't.
Yeah, so it's approximately
Right.
$320,000 to $370,000 for a 66-passenger electric bus, and that doesn't include the infrastructure that's required to charge it.
But it's 95,000 per year per bus that we're renting, contracting.
You
Well,
could lease.
But that includes the driver. you
True.
know. So it's.
I know, you've done this, you've done
Yes.
great presentations on it. I'm just saying that it's a sad thing that.
Yeah, and we're all going to have to go that way because
Right.
last year's budget that was adopted last year has a timeline to switch all school districts over to electric buses. So it is
It's
coming.
gonna happen, yeah.
But the amount of funding that's is going to need to be supplemented has to go out. We did apply for the EPA grant in order to I think it's 500 million every 6 months, I think, for the next several years, where they're going to have competitive grants to be able to provide electric buses to school districts, but they are focused on urban and high-need districts,
Not rural fringe.
not rural fringe, which is where we
Wait, you
are.
put in an application, does it roll over every 6 months to every pool, or do you have to keep on redoing it?
We'll need to
We'll have to
reapply. The
reapply.
deadline, I believe, was like early August.
Okay.
So Joe and I, we did the work last summer.
Yeah,
it won't be that much work because we've been through the process. So we certainly will reapply. And this is going on for 5 years. I mean, as long as the money doesn't run out before then, but that's what we're told at the federal level. And, yeah, we certainly will pursue that money.
Hopefully our number will come up.
You just have to urbanize a little more.
Become a little more
Or,
rural.
or rural more, less fringe, more rural.
More rural, less fringe.
Take out the paved roads, put in dirt.
Oh, get involved in a town meeting if you want to talk about paved roads. Any further board questions, comments about the proposed budget? Sarah, Matt? Okay. All right. Then I think we're going to move on to the adoption of the proposed 2023-2024 school budget and approval of the property tax report card. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby adopts a budget of $12,564,788 for school district purposes for the school year commencing July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2024, to be presented for voter consideration at the annual meeting of the district on May 16th, 2023. And be it further resolved that the board hereby approves the 2023-2024 property tax report card as presented. Can I have a motion?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Abstentions? Did that reversed? Okay. Thank you. Congratulations. I believe this means we have adopted the proposed school budget. Moving on to the approval of proposition to appear on the ballot of the annual meeting of May 16th, 2023, capital reserve funds. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby authorizes the following proposition to be placed on the ballot for voter consideration at the annual meeting of the district on May 16th, 2023. Proposition number 2, authorization for use of capital reserve funds. Shall the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District be authorized to expend monies from the Capital Reserve Fund previously established and approved by the voters of the district for the purpose of general improvements, reconstruction, renovations, or additions to district buildings, and currently maintaining a balance of $110,657 to contribute to the cost of replacing the district's oil-fired water heaters with electric units, including the attendant site work, the maximum contribution to which shall not exceed $45,000. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Wait, just really, so we checked with a lawyer and you couldn't add in order to use the 90,000, right? Remember they asked that last meeting?
We did. We went back to the attorney twice, and this is what Chris Lanchatton recommends.
Okay. Any other questions? Move to a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Item D, approval of proposition to appear on the ballot of the annual meeting of May 16th, 2023, term of instruction contract. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby authorizes the following proposition to be placed on the ballot for voter consideration at the annual meeting of the district on May 16th, 2023. Proposition number 3, authorization to enter into term of instruction contract. Shall the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District be authorized to contract for a period of not less than 2 and not more than 5 years with the Putnam Valley Central School District for the purpose of educating Garrison students in grades 9 through 12 and to provide the necessary transportation for such students? Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Any questions or comments? Okay, move to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Thanks very much. We're going to move to public comment. Public comment is intended for members of the community to speak openly and voice concerns. In accordance with Policy 1510 of the Garrison Union Free School District, any person wishing to speak shall comply with all provisions of this policy. Comments about specific school personnel or individual students is a violation of board policy. Concerns regarding students or personnel should be discussed privately with the superintendent or appropriate administrator. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes, and speakers are asked to conduct themselves in a respectful manner. The board will listen to comments but will not engage in dialogue. Any necessary follow-up will be noted and provided through the appropriate channel. Members of the public wishing to comment during board meetings are asked to place their name and town of residence on the sign-in sheet. Commenters will be invited to the podium to address the board. I don't have anybody signed up for public comment. Would anybody like to come join us? Since we've got a nice small group tonight, we're going to move on. Okay, to acceptance of the minutes. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accept the minutes of the regular meeting of March 29th, 2023 as presented. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any comments, questions about the agenda, about the minutes? Nope, move to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. Abstentions? Okay. Moving on to CSE, CPSE recommendations. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District approve the Committee on Special Education, CSE, and Committee on the Preschool Special Education, CPSE, recommendations and student placements. I don't think I need to read the numbers, right? Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. Abstentions? Okay, thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon recommendation of the superintendent, hereby approves the items of the personnel consent agenda as presented. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Anything
Sure.
to address?
Sure. We have just 2 personnel items. Victoria DeRazio has served as an aide in our pre-K program this year and has done a wonderful job. And it was a new program. Getting it off the ground was a lot of work, and we appreciate that. She is leaving to pursue a career and go back to college. She's taking, I believe, graduate courses. We wish her well, and we thank her for her service. Next, we have Jeff Noble, who has been a cleaner with our school district for 22 years. And for anyone that knows Jeff, he typically has been on the late shift, and he's helped us out for board meetings and many other events. He is a lovely person, always polite, always reliable, always hardworking. So this is his resignation for retirement. We wish him well, and we will, in early June, invite all of the people who are retiring as well as those who are achieving tenure. We'll have them at our June meeting and have more of a formal celebration for them.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Carl? Okay. We're going to move to a vote. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Second round of public comment. I think we're going to keep going. And we are here at board comments. I'm running it, so I get to go backwards. Sarah, you're first. Any board comments?
No comment, thank you.
Matt, you're next.
Just thanks for accommodating me today, and especially Dusty, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Great. Kent?
No comment.
David's not here. Jocelyn?
I mean, I'll just say that I appreciated going through this whole budget process and allowing me to be disappointed every meeting with it. But in the end, I support this district, of course, which is why I vote yes, which is what I would expect others to do who support this district. There's so many things in the news we could talk about, but since it's 8:03 and I want Courtney to like win for like having the shortest meeting ever, I won't even bring up all the things in the news that I could have brought up
There's a lot there.
that are relevant. I mean, even to, yeah, so much. And Dave is not here, and he's usually the person who does that anyway, so it's like, yeah.
Save it for David.
I'll save it for David for next time.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. My last comment will be thank you for your patience, letting me muddle through this. Executive session? Yes.
Yes,
I
correct.
believe so. Okay. Recommended action, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby enters into executive session for the purpose of discussing the term of instruction agreement with the Haldane Central School District. We will, it's not here, we will,
Conference room.
thank you. We will adjourn with no further action.
Is there a separate link for that?
You could use the same one.
Okay.
And we do
thank
need
you.
a motion on the exec session.
Okay. Can I have a motion, please?
Second.
All in, move to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Great job, Courtney.
Great job, Court.
Abstentions? No. Thank you. All right.